It is so important to have strong social skills because without that, you are without an ability to communicate. You can't get your ideas across, and actually, no one would probably like you. So, today we decided we wanted to come on here. We had a major success. Our last episode that you and I did together reached over 500,000 views. We gained hundreds of new followers and listeners. So, thank you to everyone who's new here. Today, we want to dive into social skills, the set of social skills required to live a good, functioning, happy life, and what we've found kind of works for us in that framework, as well as focusing on dopamine and motivation and how do we retain meaningful relationships in our lives. So with that, John, I wanted to start because one of the best skill sets that I've, kind of honed is my social skills is from college. It wasn't any class that I took, though. It was the fact that I was in this fraternity, this group of guys. It was about 60 guys in our school, and I was the president, but it gave me this understanding of how to communicate with people, how to coordinate with people, how to convince people to do something or buy into a thing that they maybe didn't want to. And I think that really carried over. Now I've been in a sales role and a sales leader for 10 years, and it's very interesting, right? What I learned in the textbook about mathematics or economics hasn't really come up, but how to group together with 10 plus people in a room and get a project started, planned, and finished, that's been invaluable. I don't know if you share the same experience or if you use your textbook knowledge, but I'm feeling I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I think we know the answer. I wasn't really the world's greatest student, but I was a first-hand witness to what you did do back in those days, and I'll get into it in a moment. First of all, gotta throw the PEDs in, right? You gotta get right.
I'm on my L-theanine today, as usual.
That's pretty good. We got the Trader Joe's sparkling water with like the cranberry lime. Not bad. You make your cranberry comments. I'll take them. First of all, great success with what we had with the over 500,000 views, right? Some comments are extraordinarily towards the positive, some towards the negative. That's okay at the end of the day. And I think you and I both share this in our communication that when we put things out there, it is research. We do our best. We're not here pontificating. We don't think our word is gospel. We're just here giving our observances as two guys that have quite a lot of responsibilities in everyday life and are striving pretty hard to make something out of their lives too. So I think that is the genesis of what we talk about and what we speak about. Is it for everyone? No. But to everyone watching, and I know we're going to have a lot more after the success we had last time, just know a lot of this comes from an earnest place, and we work hard on it. So to harken back to social skills, really quick, Coop.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's really important that we're talking about this because you want to look at things on a graph, right? It's almost been a linear decline. So if we're going to go from the time period you're talking about, maybe to about 2020, there's been a linear decline in the quality of socialization, social skills, everything like that. And then you have the pandemic thrown into the mix where people are locked in their homes and things have never really quite gotten the same. Now, why do we want to talk about this? Because last time we talked about mental health. And now we're at a position in society where a lot of people are very opinionated on the fact that we went off about this, that people are electively euthanizing themselves, right? Clearly, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, socialization pretty high up the ladder. So the fact that it's true that these things are depreciating, it ties in and we're building off of it. And even in our everyday lives, we see the effects of it. So I'll let you keep going, but I just wanted to say, and I really do hope you touch on this, the intertwining of social skills and leadership, like you showed back in the day. And I can tell the story if you want me to tell the story, but how much that worked, and absolutely.
Yeah, well, hey, not everyone is blessed like I am with wonderful leadership qualities and perfect social acumen. That was a joke, everybody. Mom, you can still go on and believe that about me. No, but the reality is that everyone starts from some baseline. And the best thing that you could do is just constantly focus on improving. Nobody's perfect. Even Jeff Bezos will tell you that, yeah, he improves a little bit every day. Actually, I follow this guy on X, and Mr. Penny, I'm coming for you. You're coming on this pod. But his name is Penny 2 times. And he always tells this story about his grandfather who would share the famous kind of adage, I guess, where you take a penny and you double it every day. And you double it and you double it. Well, after 27 days, you're at 1.3 million. So in less than a month, if you just double your small, tiny baby step progress, you're going to grow to amass this huge, huge wealth. And that is really a profound message. It's the same thing with your social skills or your skill set in anything, really. Get 1% better, get 10% better every day, every week. And pretty soon those results are going to compound themselves. and you're going to have a chart that looks just like what Bitcoin's been doing in 2024. So this is, it's so important. And actually, one of the things that I'm doing right now as we build this podcast, and actually behind my paywall on my X account, just for everyone who's curious, is I'm kind of doing this daily vlog where I share my thoughts and I go through specifically what goes into making this podcast. And one of the reasons I started doing that is this book right here, The Road Less Stupid. This was a recommendation I found from Ali Abdar, who's a YouTuber. And basically, this book goes through very simple things. And the message is spend time thinking. Don't go sit at your computer, do your emails first thing in the morning. Sit down and think. And not about, oh, what am I going to do today? But think about the big picture stuff. So why do I bring this up? It talks about improving. It takes you out of your own head. It takes you out of that, grind that you're in every day, and it makes you focus. Same thing when you said, we're not just out here pontificating. I push back on that. We are. Because as we write, as we research, as we actually speak, we're still forming those thoughts. We're still forming those ideas. And something that Joe Rogan always says, and I love it, you can't be married to your ideas. You are not your ideas. We might change our ideas. We might say something in that episode 2 weeks ago, and we might think differently in 2 weeks from now. So, it's about personal improvement. It's about introspection, in my mind, is a big thing. But yeah, that was my book that I wanted to recommend, because if you're going to keep improving just a little bit every day, this asks you to spend 25 minutes, literally 25 minutes, just thinking big picture and answering tough questions about how to overcome problems. But yeah, I just started. I'm about halfway through, but it's definitely been good. What about you, John?
There's people that use that framework of the penny that you mentioned. You familiar with Tyson Fury, former heavyweight champion?
Okay, sure.
He was coming out of a very deep depression, drinking every day, really out of shape. You could look it up. It's a very motivating video. Within that same 30-day time frame, the first day he took a walk. He walked about 15 minutes. The next day he walked a little further. And by the end of that week, he was running that distance. And through the nature of the compounding, by the end of the month, he was back to sparring, back to getting in condition. So, and it's a cliche saying, right? The journey of the million miles starts with a single step, but it really does help. Now, back to pontificating. The only reason I said we're not doing that is because we're not sitting here lording over, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Listen, a lot of the advice I give on here, anecdotal, most of it's anecdotal, okay? I'm not the research guy. I'm sure everyone's detected that. But a lot of it's from mistakes that I've made. Incredible errors, mistakes, failures. I'm the first to admit it, but you have to rectify it, right? You have to rectify it. I mean, let's talk about dopamine real quick. I think a lot of the issues that we see right now are because people's dopamine receptors are fried. Now, am I the science guy here? Am I going to show you a diploma, this and that? No, I'm not. But by the same token, I can tell you, because if you see the facts, for instance, on TikTok, quiz you right here. With the TikTok, how long do you have to grasp the viewer's attention?
Oh my gosh, you have like under 5 seconds, maybe less.
Under a second.
Yeah, right.
Under a second. That is how, to use the lingo, how cooked we are. Now, if you look up Alex Becker, he's a very successful software developer, huge in the crypto space. In our circle of Twitter, I'm sure we have a lot of people that follow him and like him a lot. He actually makes videos on this. And one of the things he says about it is that you need to learn how to train your brain to get dopamine from things that actually advance you towards your goals. Now, it sounds preachy, like, oh, this and that, but you actually have to do that. You have to retrain your brain to get dopamine from things that actually get you further along. So I'll give you an example, like, for instance, video games. I'll pretty much cut that out. You don't realize, but video games are designed pretty much to be as addictive as possible. I remember when Call of Duty came out with the shipment map, that tiny little compact map, 22 players in a tiny little space. You would start for 20 minutes of shooting. I would go 99-7. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. But the problem was, when I wasn't at my computer, I wanted to play shipment. I wanted to shoot people. I wanted to play the game. I'm at Whole Foods at the corner of the aisle thinking I hear footsteps coming around. You're really going to get in trouble with that. But if you take the dopamine that you get from silly things like video games and doom scrolling and bed rotting and all of these things and put it into things that actually advance you further, like, I'm never more jazzed than when I go walk through a few buildings during the day and they come on here after. I'll show up to these meetings and my business associates, my business partner, like, why are you all dressed up, man? I mean, it's good to dress for me. Dude, I'm excited to be here. This is what gives me dopamine. And the thing is, take something and substitute it with something else. When I find myself with a couple hours free, maybe you want to pick up the controller, maybe you want to scroll a little bit. It's summertime, go walk. Can't walk, raining, write. Brainstorm, create something like that. And you'll find these feedback loops of dopamine tie into your goals, personally, professionally, fitness, wherever it may be. You feel so much healthier as a person. And again, not pontificating, because these are mistakes that I've made. These are silly things that I've done. And you rectify them, and you notice by retraining those pathways. And there are guys way further up the food chain from you and I that preach these same things. And if you follow it and use their lead, it takes you to a place you want to go, and you fix that brain of yours.
So let me stop you there, because I think that you and I have had a lot of conversations about this, maybe offline, and I want to just rewind for 1 second to give some framework to the conversation. But first, I'm going to ask you, is bed rotting, is that a real verb? Is that an activity that people do?
Bed rotting is exactly what you think it is. Bed rotting is when you're sitting there.
Yeah,
that's bed rotting.
We all rot in bed.
You're not supposed to bed rot. You're not supposed to. In fact, they say you should stay out of your bed until it is time to fall asleep.
Okay, so listen, dopamine is very important, and it's very interesting. I didn't know what dopamine was. I always felt like, oh, it makes you happy or not. I listened to the Andrew Huberman podcast. It's 2 hours all about dopamine. I could not recommend that highly enough. If you like science and making like, hey, we all know ice baths are a good thing, but why? Well, Huberman is the guy that is going to tell you why. In fact, that's a central focus of his dopamine episode. What he explains is that dopamine is not your happiness hormone. That's serotonin that makes you happy or not. So dopamine is more accurately described by him as your motivation hormone. And what that means is as you get higher dopamine levels, you feel more motivated, you feel more invested and passionate about things. And it could be something very simple when you deprive yourself or when you do something challenging, even very small, like making your bed in the morning. It gives you just that little bit of dopamine raise. And he explains it as a waveform. So as you do things that are very easy, you get a little dopamine hit. You scrolled TikTok and you feel good. You got your dopamine hit. But then when you're done, you go way down and you crash to these dopamine levels and you feel terrible. Let's imagine you snorted a line of cocaine. You're going to be at a 300% dopamine rush. You feel great. You're going to start a business with all your friends right then and there. But the next day, you're not going to be able to get out of bed. And that's because you experience a crash. So actually, I joked about cold plunges. That was his perfect example. A cold exposure, as he puts it, or cold plunge, or even a cold shower below 40 degrees for 3 minutes a day will give you a 300% spike in your dopamine levels. However, unlike the cocaine, you don't experience the same 300% swing downward. You actually have a maintained level. So there are very simple things that you can do to keep your dopamine levels high. Something so simple as when we go to the gym, we like to put in headphones so we work out and we have some music playing. He suggests go to the gym once a week and don't wear headphones. Focus on the exercise. You really love that music, but as soon as you deprive yourself of it, you feel better when you get it again. And you actually can reset your sensitivity. You want to be very dopamine resilient. You don't want to be getting these peaks and valleys.
I have a question. Are the peaks and valleys born out of the subconscious? Because you know that snorting cocaine all night is not good for you. You know that scrolling TikTok's not good for you. Is it the subconscious rebound of knowing if it's right or wrong for you that leads to the down curve of the wave?
I honestly don't think so. I'm not the expert here, but it seems like it's a hormone. It's a literal chemical reaction that's released. The more that you do it, the more that you get. And then, it's a good question, right? Why would you be long lasting on the spike with a cold shower, but not with the Coke? I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer.
Anecdotally, I find there's not a crash when it comes from positive things, right? So let's say I walk through a new building, get an exclusive on a new property to sell in my career, and then I go for a workout and then I come home. It's hard to come down. I've mentioned this before. I call it the RPMs, like the brain RPMs, but there's not that drastic come down. Whereas if I am shooting people in Call of Duty, there is. In fact, I've found the come down from video games can be so violent that it actually leads to irritability. So if you have a whole nation of kids, now this Gen Alpha, all these guys gaming all day long, what does that lead to? Because video games become so powerful. I'm not anti-video game. I love video games. I'm talked to off a gaming computer. But the downtrend of the things that I find aren't positive can actually lead to irritability on the rebound.
Well, that brings me to the perfect next segue here. I mean, you had sent me this article and it showed that men aged 18 to 29 are now opting out of the dating pool. I think it's at 50% approximately, electively pulling themselves out of the dating pool. And hey, there's many reasons, right? We could go into what we think it is. I mean, are women experiencing the same thing? Do you think women are unable to find men? Are men unable to find women? Or is it more so that they just don't have to? Availability of pornography? Or who knows what, right? Maybe they just don't have the dopamine. But it's very strange to witness that. That's right. The word incel has come up, and actually, many famous people go online as the incel, and they don't want to get together. They're not even talking with other
Well, there was a
sex.
viral TikTok for girls about 29 years old crying that shouldn't have anybody, and there was a bunch of other girls that were doing the same thing. I feel bad because, again, not sexist at all, but usually marriage and marriageability is something that's more in the female mind than male mind, just on average. Not that both parties don't care about it, but, and again, we open this with socialization. Socialization, dopamine, the availability of cheap entertainment, reclusiveness from what we went through 4 years ago, it all ties in. It all ties in.
Actually, another example that Huberman literally lists in the episode is talking about speaking with the opposite sex, or flirtation is another thing that will give you a dopamine spike.
And that's positive dopamine. That won't lead to a crash. That won't lead to a crash. And it's funny, this is something I've actually talked about many times in my life, and it doesn't have to be a romantic encounter, right? You could just duck into a Starbucks on your way back from a meeting and want to grab a quick drink to refresh yourself. If the barista's super cute, you just have a friendly little conversation. Nothing, whatever, in that realm.
Innocuous.
Perfect word. That can put you on a little high. That could, and actually, it's proven to increase testosterone too.
Yeah. John, do you have blue eyes?
I do.
Yeah. I went out to lunch once back on my old job with this guy who had these really nice blue eyes. He was blonde-haired, blue eyes, handsome fellow. We sit down at this restaurant, and this pretty cute Hispanic waitress comes over, and she goes, "Oh, hello." Looks at him. She looks at me. She goes, "Wow, you have beautiful eyes." And he shot daggers at her. "What? I've got the blue eyes. You got the brown eyes." It made me feel so good. I couldn't sleep for like 6 days after that. So,
well, there's the old meme. Men always remember that one compliment they got 2 years ago.
there you go. It's like 6 years for me.
Yeah, there's some of those things can lodge in your brain for a long time. Girls go out into this world. You're so pretty. You're so this. You're that. For guys, it's like, oh, you look great today. Oh, thank you. Keep that. We'll keep that for 18 months.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, actually, though, it feels sometimes when you get a good compliment, like you're like leveling up almost. And with the digitization of the world, and you brought up video games. Hey, I've played video games a heck of a lot in my past. Right. There's actually what business leaders will say now is try to find ways to gamify your life. And I think it actually ties back to this dopamine conversation, because let's say you complete a quest in World of Warcraft, or you just unlocked the next level in Call of Duty. Well, you feel really good, right? You just did something that was tough. Imagine if you did that in real life. Your business just hit 10,000 in revenue, and now you're reaching 25,000. I have a feeling that's going to be a lot more of a strong dopamine release.
But it absolutely
work a lot
is.
harder to get it.
And when you say to people, you should, I've actually spoken about this, gamify your life. Well, how do I know? What are the metrics? Dude, the weight rack, if you go to the gym, the numbers get bigger as you go up. Like, you have a bank account, right? Like, there's a number you can tell greater or lesser than, and it goes up.
But where's my experience bar?
Yeah, where's my experience bar? And then, hey, guess what, man? When that bank account number goes up, then you can upgrade your skin and upgrade your character and get yourself all the accessories you want. Yeah, I'm not a Louis Vuitton guy, but that's your thing. You go for it.
Yeah, man, it is true. And actually, it is tough. I have to level with that. And in fact, I said at the beginning of this that I'm kind of vlogging the progress with the podcast. That's what I talk about a lot in those little videos where I'm talking to my subscribers. It's tough to kind of create the roadmap when you haven't been there. And I listened to something really, really profound. It's so simple. If you're going to try to learn business, why would you do it on your own? Why would you try to reinvent it? Mm-hmm. If you're going to become a tennis player, what do? You hire a coach.
Right.
So if you're going to try to become a top business player, why wouldn't you hire a coach?
I have a real estate coach, a guy that's helped me out a lot. I consult with him privately.
Of course.
Yeah.
My point is finding that mentor, right?
The thing is this, right? Maybe it's not even a mentor, just someone that can help you like with whatever parts of your game are lacking. I think it's Alex Hormozi said that whatever you want to do on this planet, anything you can name, somebody else has done it. You want to make rap music, you want to be a pro tennis player, you want to go to the moon, people have done these things before you. Study that. And it's out there. And to go back to what we were talking about, you can never be, I think a big issue too is with social media and how we're out there and people have these digital footprints. A big thing is ego. You can never be too proud to learn. Because when we were talking about socialization and speaking and social skills, one thing I was going to say, just jam you in the side and get to you. I do study public speaking. Best public speaker in my opinion, 44, man. Barack Obama. The
Oh,
amount
wow.
of
Oh, my
time,
followers are going to unfollow me.
yeah.
Wow.
But you have to be able to sit there and watch and take away the message. I'm sitting there. Do I disagree with 98% of it? Yeah, I do, to be honest. I think the only thing Obama ever did that I liked is the fact he wore a tan suit in the summer, had the guts to do that. I thought that was really cool. You know, he's dressing for the season. I think people hated that. As a fashion guy, I love that. But the thing is, take your personal pride and your political views out of the equation. Look at his cadence, his tonality, his body language, and study that. Malcolm X is another one. Do I think Malcolm X would like me? Probably not. Not to get into that whole thing, I probably wouldn't be his favorite guy in the world. But if you watch, it's a speech of his, 1964. It's called The Ballot or the Bullet from Detroit. The best public speech, I think, in history.
Well, the CIA answered that question for him shortly thereafter, I'm sure, as well as his other friends. But that's for another topic. In fact, though, I was just going to bring up that it's really not even in what you say in a lot of ways when you talk about public speaking. It's more so in the delivery, the confidence level, right? Like I'm thinking of, I'm the election fraud guy on X, right? So I kind of have weeded through this world. I very confidently presented a lot of it and have been debunked on much of it, or actually helped other people kind of understand the right way to present it, because it is a concern. You want to safeguard these things. But it reminds me of like a Mike Lindell character or Rudy Giuliani when his face is dripping down at the Four Seasons. You know, he's saying these things that are not really verifiable or not, but just so confidently, you have to believe it. All right. And I don't know if that makes you a good public speaker if you're lying potentially or potentially not, but you know, I get what you're saying. It's just about being out there. It's just about putting yourself forward confidently and calmly and making your point
You
known.
also have to, for instance, Jordan Belfort is one of the best public speaking instructors out there. But the thing is, people will, it's more of what he teaches. He's very big into tonality and things of that nature. But if you think in your brain, right away people just time, oh, he did illegal things, he did bad things. Again, like me watching Obama, right? Do I agree with him politically? No. Can I learn from him? Yes. Did Jordan Belfort do some things I probably don't agree with? Sure. But am I watching these videos about speech and presence and all of these things and gaining valuable information? Yeah. You have to separate the two. It's simple as that. And one last bit about public speaking, you have to play off of your avatar, right? So I use a more colloquial, conversational tone when I speak on the camera, more to the everyman, more like we're having a conversation in our living room. If I was more diminutive in stature, or if like I look differently, I'd be more demonstrative and this and that. But if I was coming on here yelling and waving my finger like that, I'd be unbearable. You have to have self-awareness. And I think you do the same thing. We're bigger guys, we have presence, so you have to soften the blow a little bit with that commonality, which helps you relate to people, because emotion is the biggest part of it. You can have the best tonality, but if it comes off as inauthentic, if it comes off as something that doesn't really resonate with people, you have to find a way to tie in the emotion of your speech and deliver it in such a way that it actually resonates. And there's 1,000 different ways to resonate.
I had a wake-up call in a sales training course that I had taken at one of the companies I worked for, and it was very eye-opening, and actually it was disturbing to me when I got the result, because it had revealed things about myself that I hadn't acknowledged or realized or wanted to admit were accurate.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, of course. I'm going to tell you. So I took the DISC assessment, D-I-S-C, and each of those four have a different title. One of them is like socially conscious. One of them is more analytical. One of them is more introspective. And then one of them is dominant, D. So the idea is each of them have a quadrant, and you basically answer these questions and you fall somewhere in the middle, right? You might be more introspective, but you have a social component, and you also like to be fast moving. You might be in the middle. So I took this sales training class with 40 people at the company that I was in, and they put the dot matrix on the screen when everyone was done, and they showed, okay, wow, look, everyone's kind of in the middle. You might be slightly S, but you're a little bit I, or you might be mostly C and D. So I was noticing there's one dot that was totally an outlier. It wasn't in the middle at all. It was in a corner. I was the only one in the entire course that came out. I was 100% D, dominant. And I kind of raised my hand. I'm like, hey, did I do this wrong? Did I take the test wrong? I'm the only one. He goes, no, you can't mistake this test. It's just about who you are. He was explaining to me that, you know, a lot of these 100% Ds are CEOs or presidents. And I'm like, well, okay, I always had these leadership qualities. But then I start reading about, this is how you're perceived as a 100% D. I don't stop to listen to people. I don't follow instructions. I don't care about people's emotions or how they perceive me. I have to be the one that's talking and running the conversation. And as I'm kind of taking this in, I'm thinking, oh my God, people must think I'm a total asshole. This is really how I am. And I showed it to my wife and my friends, and they're like, listen, man, kind of are like that. And it was really, really eye-opening to me. And I'm grateful in the end that I took that test, because it helped me. What it basically does is it says, here's who you are. And you have to then judge how other people might associate. And then you kind of have to appeal to those characteristics. So if someone who is very socially conscious is talking to me, they might be talking about all their emotions and how they feel, and they want to be very flowery in their language. I'm unable to listen to that. I need it to be very direct. I need it to be very succinct, and I need to be very, directive. And then I'm going to be able to jive with you. I'll be on your frequency, right? But what happens is everyone is everything. So while I may be most comfortable because I'm a 100% T, I can be any of them, but it takes more effort and more energy and more cognizance. And that is my ultimate point, is by taking that test, by exposing who you really are and how you're perceived, you then can actually manipulate how you're acting and put that version of yourself forward when you're in a business meeting or when you're meeting a new person. And maybe I didn't, or maybe I overshared.
No, I don't think you overshared at all. And I think that's very
guys,
accurate. And let me tell you something. It ties into all of the three portions we've discussed already. You have the self-awareness, and you're willing to go through the minor ego death of getting feedback that you might not have been so comfortable hearing. But the thing is, we're talking about social skills. We're talking about dating. We're talking about public speaking. Those are three avenues that have a commonality underneath them of putting yourself out there. And you put yourself out there, there are chances that things might not go your way. You go pitch a business deal, people are going to say no. You might give a speech, it might not resonate with people, right? And it's so much easier to sit home and scroll and be behind the phone and not put yourself out into a position where you get feedback that might not be so great.
100%. 100%. I'm grateful you're listening. Maybe you should take the test. It really is.
And I'll take the Enneagram test too.
Yeah, the other one, someone commented on the last video. I don't know why, but hey, listen, we are putting ourselves out there. We're adjusting the way. I mean, you said it well when you said people aren't dating anymore. You really do. You have to kind of put on an act. In fact, anytime you walk out your front door, you're kind of putting on an act, right? In any way. Don't you think?
Listen, I don't want to be an example to a viewer, because I really don't. I'm very authentic. If I walk into somewhere, whether it's a business meeting, it's a romantic encounter, I have an appointment somewhere, I'm not usually very dressed up. I'm respectable, but I'm usually myself too. And I operate on a different frequency. But am I as authentic as I am in the safety of my own home? No, there's certain aspects of myself I reel in, but probably a lot less than the average bear. I wouldn't recommend that for everyone. I wouldn't. You have to be very comfortable with it.
I think, though, you also get, and this is the antithesis to what I just said, but you actually would get better results in many cases when you are yourself. Right?
You're going to get into a few jams.
You are.
There'll be a few issues. Like, for instance, when I get pulled over.
Okay. Happens a lot in Nassau County.
Yes. Yes, it does. I could tell you, with my eyes closed, I could drive to the Nassau County Traffic Court and tell you exactly where it is.
Haven't been pulled over in like 4 years since I moved out.
Shout out to Nate the Great, my traffic lawyer, if you're watching. I love you, bro. Anyway, my point being there is I have a very tough time with, and obviously I'm very respectful of the officers and stuff, but I have a very tough time being like, well, good evening, how are you? I kind of just go, what's up? What did I do? You know, and putting on a front like that, I just heard. And has that led to probably like tickets and things where I could have gotten out of it if I'd sucked up a little bit? Yeah, absolutely. But to me, paying the $200 ticket, as long as there's no points, and not having to put on that front and kowtow to another man, that's worth it to me. That is worth it to me. Call it male ego, stupidity. I realize it's not the smartest thing ever, but at the end of the day, you're talking about being a D. I'm talking about the fact that I got to keep it straight in every encounter that I've got. We are who we are, positives and negatives.
Yeah, and that's who makes you who. I'm always told I have this really boisterous laugh, but actually in modern day, I find that now you're kind of zombified. That's the laugh again. And that's a good
there's no
laugh,
such thing as a
right?
bad laugh. I actually saw a very wholesome quote the other day. You should never poke fun at how a person laughs or how a person smiles, because you would make them uncomfortable and self-conscious in moments they're supposed to be happy. Just wanted to share that.
That's interesting. I mean, I was trying to think, because I was thinking about that, how nobody really laughs anymore. It's just
no one really does laugh
threats,
anymore.
but,
You don't really. When's the last time you had like a belly laugh? You know.
So that's exactly what I was thinking about. I had one recently. In fact, my wife was like about to kick me out of the house because it was such a stupid. It's this account on Instagram called Mem Glavstroy, and it's not going to come across here as a funny thing. It's guys in a barber shop that stand up and then start doing this crazy stupid dance. And can't even think about it. I'm scrolling this for an hour, crying, laughing. I start reading the comments. People are rating the dance.
Sometimes
Right
it
now thinking,
resonates, man, and it hits. And in a world with less and less joy, where people interact less, man, take it and be happy with it. Take it and be happy with it. I'm happy you found that.
so good.
I look forward to it.
What about you, John? What makes you laugh? I got to stop.
So we've discussed my friend Austin, one of my best friends in the world. He and I talk almost every day. I go for a walk around lunchtime.
Shout out,
He and
Austin.
I will just talk about things that whatever government agency's tapping my cell phone, I know they're laughing their ass off. And it's just, you know, you need that in a world that's increasingly surveillance and censored, to go out and just let it fly in a personal conversation like that. And good old locker room talk, as our boy would say. You need it. You need it. You need it. You absolutely do. And that's usually what leads to like those belly laughs where you just say something. It's like, I got to blurt something out. And it happens.
Yeah. I mean, my other favorite is Impractical Jokers. I can't stop. And people make fun of me. They don't think it's funny, but hey, that's the subjective nature.
Oh,
of
dude,
what
I'll
we
sit there
find funny.
and
So-
doom scroll, admittedly, those guys that shoot the air horns off and keep running their golf backswings on TikTok. You got these guys all serious, think they're
Yeah,
Tiger
yeah.
Woods, and then it's like, and they get all mad. And, oh, it's great. It's so juvenile and it's so great.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man. Well, listen, man. I mean, we've talked about dopamine, motivation, public speaking, those soft skills that we've always talked about. Let me ask you this. What do you feel like is your biggest like cold approach when you're going into some sort of sales meeting or a pitch, or you're meeting with a new
Very easy.
potential
Very
prospect
easy.
for the
Breaking
first
the
time?
tension.
Okay.
Breaking the
Yeah.
tension.
So you might not even talk about the
Breaking the
topic,
tension.
right?
Absolutely. You have to find some way to get everybody on the same page. Not like go in as a jokester and lower your value in the moment, but definitely go in and get everybody at ease. And the way you can do that is competence rules the roost. So if you know your stuff, if you came prepared for class, you're allowed to screw around more than if you didn't. So for instance, if I go to a property, it's very easy. There's so many context clues. Like I had a meeting a couple months ago. The gentleman who was looking to sell the building probably wasn't the most friendly guy in the whole world. I said, you know, I actually had called you 6 months ago about this property. Was that nice to you? No. But I saw he had his jiu-jitsu belts on the wall. And, dude, you train? I trained forever before I did my back in. And he and I were talking about that. Did you watch this fight? Did you watch that? And then I go, hey, man, I think we're here to talk business. Oh, yeah, I think you're right, too. And it goes off from that. And those are tough characters, right? But you can do it in a social situation, too. And then from a dating standpoint, as a guy, it's actually really, really important because girls are afraid a lot of times, or they're like super nervous. So you have to like put them at ease. And you can do it, too. Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Man.
They would have talked to me all
Well,
along.
you found a
if I
great
just
one.
talked
So
to them?
you're all
For the audience, I've been married
you're
for
all
10
set.
years. So
You married for 10 years?
no, I've been married for 3 years dating.
But even like with your family, right? You go see your family. If you haven't seen your family for a while, what's their primary concern? How are you? Are you okay? Is everything okay? So the first thing you do,
That's
guys,
true.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm feeling good. Things are going well. How are you? That's that. And took it right out of me. I mean, anywhere I go, right? Even if I'm, to use the Starbucks example, if I'm ordering a drink or if I have to go somewhere or just someone's helping you somewhere, even if it's a little innocuous thing, you're like, all right, John, like, come with us, blah, blah, blah. How are you today? Oh, I'm good. Thanks for asking. And then
Yeah.
with nuance, like, oh, like I like your shoes, or you like your outfit, you got a cool necklace on, something like that. Just make that little connection and it takes the air out of the room.
All right, I got a
Let's
story.
go.
You just reminded me. We were away. I must have been with my friends Joey and James. Shout out. We're shouting out all our friends today because we're gonna force them to listen. We were shopping. I forget where. We were at a grocery store somewhere. Oh, you know where it was? New Year's Eve. And it wasn't Joey, it was Jackson. All my friends. And we're checking out. And I did exactly what you just recommended with this old lady. I go, hey, how are you? I'm really well. What are you guys doing in town? And, you know, we start this conversation and I can see my two friends kind of like looking at me like, are you seriously talking to this lady right now? Like, we want to go home and start drinking these beers we're buying. And I was like, wow, we're in North Adams, Massachusetts. What do you think about that? Like a 4-minute conversation could really backfire sometimes, is my point. If you let the wrong person start talking about themselves. But maybe that's me being the 100% D, right? I can't even listen to
You're
people,
aware
but
of
I'm
it.
aware of it. And that's, I
You're
think,
aware
the
of it. But
saving grace.
again, if you make that connection, like you can get people to go above and beyond in their roles too. Like I remember we have a 24-hour CVS
Yeah.
over here. I went wheeling in there at like 2 a.m. I said to the older lady around the pharmacy, I said, listen, instead of being like, excuse me, ma'am, I have the following symptoms. I was like, it is too late to wake my mom up and I don't know what to do. Like, you need to help me out. She comes around. Okay, here, take this. Maybe you should try that. Oh, I don't know. Actually, people go above and beyond when you create that connection. You know, you have to be a little vulnerable. You have to make fun of yourself a little bit. But if you're secure in what you got, it's fine. You know, and that's...
You know what you did is you appealed to human nature of giving, and that what this is another sales technique actually is ask for a favor. And this is how I employ that in my day-to-day life. I'm always in my car because I have to travel to job site. And whenever I get a call and someone goes, hey, can you send me that? I go, can you please do me a favor? Could you email me a reminder to do that? And then I get to my office and it'll be in my emails and they kind of go out of their way. Okay, fine. What's your email? All right then. And I make them do a favor for me. And then I get to do a favor for them.
Symbiotic.
And it's almost reciprocal. We start this whole rapport building relationship. So here's my other thing. When you were talking about building rapport with the customer and talking about jujitsu belts and everything unrelated to work, without exaggeration, that is, and if my customers are listening, sorry, you know my trick now. That is literally my goal. Whenever I walk into a meeting is to talk about anything other than work, anything. And as long as I can, I will avoid the topic for 30 minutes with the president of the company sitting across from the table because that's more important to build that rapport. And it is. I truly believe that. If you walk right in and you go, well, your elevator is a TISTAC 25 and it's 34 years old and it's not reaching the top floor because you're cavitating low on oil, you've been sucking air. We need to replace the power unit in the cylinder. This is going to run you $195,000. The person's going to laugh me right out of the room. Of course, I know what I'm talking about, but that's not what they wanted to hear. Unless they're 100% D. So you kind of have to put yourself in the other people's shoes, right? It's a very delicate balance.
That's something else. Put yourself in other people's shoes. A big thing is get everybody on the same team. For instance, I'm working on this real estate deal where they're bitching and complaining about all of these things with the property. Quite frankly, they shouldn't be. I spoke to them today, and instead of immediately being, listen, the nature of business is confrontation. Kevin O'Leary says that. It's adversarial by nature. Doesn't mean you have to conduct yourself in an adversarial manner to get where you got to go. Doesn't mean you got to supplicate, but you have to find common ground. So they called me, I'm talking to them, and the first thing I say is, guys, we have some obstacles to get through here. Let's work together. How do we team up and figure this out? So now they're on buy side, I'm on sell side, but now we're on the same team. But it all comes down to putting your pride away. It comes down to, and putting yourself out there too, because by saying that, they could have very well said, I'm working the interest of my client. I don't care what you think. People get business done that way. People, that's churn and burn, because then people don't want to deal with you again.
Yeah, no, you're right. You want to be customer service centric, but at the same time, well, that's the saying, right? It's not personal, it's business.
Right.
You
right.
have to lay
but
people
by the
off
same
sometimes.
token, not everything has to be a clash, a battle in the trenches. Listen, you want the deal done, I want the deal done. You think X, Y, Z, I think 1, 2, 3. What is the common ground here? How do we both move forward?
Oh my God, you just gave the mission statement to Elevated Thoughts.
Yeah, of course.
Ground, man.
Of course.
Really
I hope
good.
no one thinks I'm pompous this time around.
Oh God, some harsher reviews. Listen, like you said, any feedback is good feedback. And honestly, we do want it. So if you have any comment, if you think we're total idiots, just put it down below. We're really grateful for it. And we will get smarter if you tell us that we're idiots, because
it's very funny too, talking about the socialization. Another thing you have to keep in mind is how different people are and what a broad spectrum of opinions exist. If you look at the 500,000 hit and all the comments, everything from you guys are very good, whoa, this was great, to who qualified, we got called retards, morons, idiots. Same content.
Yeah. Or you obviously have no idea about depression. Like, well, you actually have no idea about my depression.
And another thing that I gleaned from it is, and maybe we're guilty of it ourselves, I don't believe so, is that people leave pretty strong comments and you can tell they didn't want. Yeah, you watched about 45 seconds and then you made a comment that was a gross opinion on 50 minutes of content. Do I expect you to watch an hour-long of content? No, but don't comment like you did.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, hey, any comment.
At this stage of the game, for sure. I'm just saying it doesn't affect me, but it's just interesting to see the spectrum of human opinion on a staggering thing such as content that's unwavering. It's not changing. It's the same content that has such a flip-flop in views and opinion.
No, 100%, 100%, man. Well, hey, actually, you know what? I was going to tease another episode that's coming up, but I think that episode's already going to be released by the time this one gets released. But if you've already seen the episode with Ashton Forbes, whoever's listening, and we talked about the missing Malaysia flight MH370, that was a very exciting episode, and I cannot wait to talk more about that. But yeah, that one was a lot of fun. I don't even know why that popped into my head, but it's about people maybe presenting things with a little bit too much confidence. Who knows? Maybe not. So, John, I want to have people follow you on Twitter, on TikTok. Where are you posting
A little more
these
active
days?
on Twitter these days, especially after what we just had. You can follow me at Jabbate, JABBATE 209 on Twitter. And I am pretty frequently on your page. I'm John Abadi on TikTok. And same handle as Twitter on Instagram. So we can talk real estate, we can talk life, we can talk pretty much anything you want. And I'll tell you, I've got an opinion. I like to go back and forth. I've had some fun DMs since we blew up. People inquiring, some fun conversations in there, people talking business, people talking life. So looking forward to keep growing on there. And, you know, it's fun in this digitized world. That I think that's something we didn't touch on, is that, yes, we're increasingly digitized, and you're in real life. Social skills are so important. You need to be accessible in the digital world too, because that's where things are headed. So get you a man that does both, as they say.
It's actually an interesting point to end on, right? Like, we sent this whole episode kind of saying that out there, put yourself out there, just be people person. But really, the digital world is such a people place. Now, you're not talking with robots, presumably. You're talking with real people behind there. So yeah, you do have to kind of say, this is bad. Scrolling is bad. I'm not going to scroll. Okay, I need this to function and do my life and network properly and have a real IRL life.
Produce more than you consume.
Here now.
Produce more than you consume.
Double-edged sword.
It's not so much a double-edged sword as it is a weapon you need to learn how to handle.
Produce more than you consume, unless you are listening to Elevated Thoughts Podcast. Please follow us on YouTube. Please follow us on Spotify. Please follow us on X. We love you guys. Thank you again for listening. John, what we have coming down the pike is also very exciting. You mentioned corporate commercial real estate. Everybody knows I'm an elevator guru. Pretty soon, you and I, what we need to do is do like a mock interaction. Let's say someone owns a building that has an older elevator. Let's say someone's got questions about how to upgrade elevators, what they need to look for, what they should keep an eye out on, or whatever.
Absolutely.
I'd love to do that with you, right? You probably have plenty of buildings that have old elevators. They could use a tip, and the people kind of throw their hands up and go, I don't even know how this thing works. So that's one of the things I want to do for you. So if you guys are interested in that, we might get it as well. But yeah, trying to have a little more professional.
Maybe a little Q&A. A little Q&A action one night would be quite fun. I think people should drop questions in, and we should just do a Q&A episode. Cool. I think we'd have a lot of fun. You don't know where that goes.
No, you really don't. You really don't. Oh, gosh. Got to be careful. Well, hey, guys, this has been Elevated Thoughts. Thank you so much, John.